You ever wanted to animate your own emotes but felt overwhelmed by the animation tools? In this video, I'll show you how to animate emotes using simple mode in Clip Studio Paint, starting from the basics and going all the way to advanced effects like zoom, shake, and looping backgrounds. By the end, you will be able to create clean, expressive animated emotes step by step. Let's get started. Emotes are usually drawn on a large canvas and later scaled down for use on Discord, Twitch, or other platforms. This means that if you want your emote to read well, the amount of detail you can add is actually limited. It's also important to exaggerate your emote's facial expression to show better. When you have a clean design with exaggerated emotions and minimal detail, your emote will read well even at a distance. The interface itself is pretty straightforward. On the right, we have tools and brushes we can use. On the left side, we have the layers and folders, which we can add, delete, or manipulate. Below, we have our animation frames and tools. Clicking on the plus button adds a new frame to the animation. Clicking on the frame itself allows you to delete or duplicate it. On the left, we have the play button to play or pause the animation. Then, back on the right, clicking the three dots shows a menu where you can enable or disable onion skin, as well as see the current frame rate. Onion skin allows you to see what you drew before and after a frame. If you draw something on the first frame, you can see its shadow on the second frame. If you draw something on the third frame, you can also see it on the second and fourth frame, with different colors. Disabling it removes the feature and you can no longer see the previous or next frames. Frame rate controls the speed of an animation. It's basically how many frames are in a second of animation. To adjust frame rates, we have to first switch to studio mode by clicking on this button. Then go to Animation, Timeline, and change frame rate. You can make the change in studio mode, then go back to simple mode and it will carry on. To make our animation process smooth and easy, we first need to organize our artwork into proper layers and folders. Place facial features such as eyes, mouth, and eyebrows inside their specific folders. Each folder should have line art and color of that specific part. Group the parts you want to animate into a single folder, and the static parts into another folder. This will make finding what you want to animate easier and keeps your file organized in case you want to make changes later on. Let's start with simple movements. This is the first animation we're aiming for. To make the stars sparkle, I will duplicate my current frame and slightly change the location of each star. Use the selection tool to select each star separately and transform tool to move them to a different place. Adjust the timing by duplicating each of the 6 frames, resulting in a total of 12 frames. Run your animation to see how it looks and adjust as needed. You can save the animation by clicking the 3 dots in the upper right corner and selecting Export Animation. Preview the animation and click Share to save it wherever you want. Let's apply color change to our emote. This technique works especially well for emotes that need to communicate a reaction quickly, like anger, embarrassment, or disappointment. First, establish the base emotion by duplicating the frame 3 times. Then, duplicate the last frame one more time, and on this frame, let's add a new layer by clicking on the plus sign. And paint it in a mid-tone red color. Then set this layer's blending mode to color burn by clicking on the layer and selecting it from the scroll down menu. Set the layer's opacity to around 50% by dragging the lever to the left and then clip it to the bodies folder. Duplicate this frame again and change the opacity back to 100% and hold this state for 8 frames. Go back to the 4th frame, duplicate it, then hold and drag the frame all the way to the end. This will move the frame from its current position to where you want it to be. Do the same for the very first frame and duplicate it once at the end. You can run the animation to see how it looks. You can optionally add blush strokes on cheeks to make the animation more interesting. Just follow my hand motion to add them very easily. Let's add more emotion to our emotes by changing the eyes and mouth. Blinking is one of the simplest ways to make an emote feel alive. You only need 3 different eye drawings played at different timings to create a natural blink. On the fourth frame of the previous animation, adjust the eyes to simulate closing them, using the Free Transform tool or the Mesh Transform tool. On the fifth frame, redraw the eyes as a closed version and hold that pose for 8 frames. Then just finish up by duplicating the fourth frame, dragging it after the eyes closing frames, and do the same for the first frame, just like we did for the previous animation. And this is the result we end up with. We can also change the mouth shape gradually, just like we did with the eyes, using these 3 shapes, so that we finally obtain this animation. We can make things more interesting by applying a zoom effect on the fourth frame. Use Transform Scale tool to make the art bigger on this frame. Zoom in at roughly the same scale for the next 8 frames as well. You can apply a shake effect by alternating between left and right rotations. Just rotate the art to the left for 2 frames and then to the right for 2 other frames. And this is how we obtain this kind of animations. Now let's apply all the previous knowledge to animate this angry emote. I will not go into detail for the parts we already covered, just to save up some time. But let me know in the comments if you don't understand something and I'll try my best to explain it to you. This animation alternates between these 2 drawings while also applying zoom and shake effects as well as color change, and an extra background loop effects. After applying the zoom, shake, and emotion change to our emote, this is what we end up with. Let's first draw the fiery background on a new canvas and stick to 3 colors maximum and make it as wide as possible. This fire will be moving horizontally across the drawing. Save it as a new PNG image with transparent background and we will import it as a new image to the previous animation. Back on the previous animation, long-click the plus button to add an image layer. Import your fire background and place it below the character folder. Now on each frame, move the fire layer slightly to the left until you reach its end. Then simply start moving it back to the right. This will create the fire motion. You can notice I also added an angry symbol by drawing a separated plus sign at an angle. Then I made it grow and disappear towards the end and at the beginning. And I did that using the same logic we used earlier for zooming and then played around with the layer transparency. For a final touch, I added a red overlay on the emote's head from frame 3 to frame 10 to emphasize the anger emotion, using the same logic I covered in the previous section for the color change. You can see I also added some straight lines for an extra effect. And that's roughly how I managed to animate this angry emote. I hope you learned something new in this video, and if you did and found it useful, I'd really appreciate your like and comments. And if you stayed this far, you make me really happy. What do you want me to cover next?